3 years have gone by. The sun has come up over 1,000 times. Summers and winters have cracked the mountains a bit more, and the rain has washed away some of the dirt. A number of babies that weren't even born before have begun talking regular sentences already. And a number of people who once thought they were bright, young, and spry just can't seem to bound up a flight of stairs like they used to without their heart fluttering a little. All that can happen in 1,000 days. Nature's been contriving and pushing in other ways too. A number of young people have gotten married. Yes, the mountains have cracked away a fraction of an inch. Millions of gallons of water have run over the mill, and here and there a new house has gone up under a roof. Well, almost everybody in the world gets married. There's hardly any exceptions here in Grover's Farmers. And mostly everybody climbs into their graves married. The first act is called Our Daily Life. This act is love and marriage. There's another act after this, and I guess you can guess what that's about. So, 3 years later, it's July 1904, just right after high school commencement. That's when a number of our young people just seem to get up and get married. Right after they finished their school examinations in solid geometry and Cicero's orations, they suddenly find themselves fit to be married. It's early morning. Only this time it's been raining. It's been pouring and thundering. Mrs. Gibbs' garden, Miss Webb's there, drenched. Bean poles and pea vines drenched. Well, yesterday over on Main Street, the rain looked like curtains being blown back and forth. What if it's going to happen again? Look. Well, there's the 5:45 for Boston. Oh, and here comes Mrs. Gibbs and Mrs. Webb making breakfast like it was any other ordinary day. I don't have to remind the women in my audience that those 2 ladies that they see before them, both of those ladies cooked 3 meals a day. One of them for 20 years and the other for almost 30. And no summer vacations. Both raised children, washed, cleaned the house, and never a nervous breakdown. It's like one of them Wild West poets once said. You've got to love life to have life. And you've got to add life to love life. I guess that's what they call the vicious circle.
Giddy up, Bessie.
Now delivering the milk. Oh, and there's Cy Crowell delivering the paper, just like his brother before him.
Good morning, Si.
Good morning, Howie.
Hey, anything in the paper I ought to know?
Nothing much, except that we're losing about the best baseball player Grover's Corner's ever seen. George Gibbs.
Well, I reckon he is.
He could hit and run bases, too.
Well, mighty fine ball player, yeah, I reckon. Whoa, Bessie. I guess I can stop and talk to Stella out of mine, too.
I don't see how you can give up a thing like that just to get married. Would you, Howie?
Well, I couldn't tell, Si. I never had no talent that way. You're up early, Bill.
Morning, Howie. Yeah, seems I'm trying to figure out how to prevent a flood. The river has been rising all night.
Well, Si Crowell is all worked up here about George Gibbs retiring from baseball.
Yes, sir. That's the way it goes. Well, back in '84, we had this ball player. Even George Gibbs couldn't touch him. Name of Hank Todd. Moved to Maine, became a parson. One hell of a ball player. Howie, how's that weather look to you?
Oh, it ain't bad. I think maybe it'll clear up for good. Good morning, Howie. Think it's gonna rain anymore? Oh, good morning, Mrs. Gibbs. Now, it rains so heavy, I think maybe it'll clear up.
I certainly hope so.
How much do you want today?
Well, I got a house full of relations, so give me 3 of milk and 2 of cream.
Oh, my wife says to tell you that we both hope they'll be very happy, Mrs. Gibbs. No, they will.
Thank you, Howie. We hope to see her at the wedding.
Oh, she'll get there if she can. Morning, Mrs. Webb.
Oh, good morning, Mr. Newsom. Now, I know I told you 4 quarts of milk, but I hope you can spare me
Oh,
another.
yes, ma'am, and 2 of cream?
Will it start raining again, Mr. Newsom?
Well, I'm just saying to Mrs. Gibbs as to how it may lighten up. Oh, and Mrs. Newsom says to tell you that we hope they'll both be very happy, Mrs. Webb. You know they will.
Thank you, Mr. Newsom. Thank you, Mrs. Newsom. We're counting on seeing you both at the wedding.
Yes, ma'am. We'll get there if we can. Couldn't miss that. Come on, Bessie.
Well, Ma, the day has finally come. You're gonna lose one of your chicks.
Don't you say another word, Frank Gibbs. I feel like crying every minute.
Well, the groom's upstairs shaving himself, although he ain't got a whole lot to shave. And then he's whistling and singing like he was happy to be leaving us. Then he stands in front of the mirror and he says, "I do." I don't think he believes it very much.
Honestly, Frank, I don't know how he'll get on. I've been seeing to his clothes and that he's had warm things. They're too young, Frank. Emily won't think of these things and they'll catch his deathly cold within a week.
I was thinking of our wedding morning, Julia.
Oh, go on with it, Frank.
I was the scaredest young fellow in the state of New Hampshire. There I was. And I saw you coming down the aisle. You were the prettiest thing that I've ever seen. It was like I've never seen you before. And then I stood there in the Congregational Church, and I felt like I was about to marry the most beautiful stranger in the world.
Well, how do you think I felt? Frank, weddings are perfectly awful things. Farces, that's what they are. Look, I made something for you.
Julia Hersey, French toast.
What, ain't nothing. I got to do something.
How'd you sleep last night, Julia?
Yeah, I sure heard the hours struck off.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I get a shock every time I think that George Gibbs is becoming a family man. That great gangling thing. You know, sometimes, Julia, I think there's nothing more complicated in this world than a son. And the relationship between a father and a son can be the darndest, the awkwardest.
Well, mother and daughter ain't no picnic either, let me tell you.
Yeah. They'll have their problems, I'm sure, but that's none of our business. You know, everybody's got a right to their own problems.
Well, people are meant to go through life in twos. It ain't normal to be lonesome.
Yeah. You know, another thing that scared me when we got married, Julia?
What, Frank?
I was afraid we wouldn't have enough to talk about. It would last us more than 2 weeks. I thought we'd have to go out and eat our meals in silence. That's a fact. And here we are, 30 years later, still talking, still conversing, without nary a barren spell.
Well, good weather, bad weather, it ain't always very choice, but I always find something to say. Have you heard Rebecca stirring around up there?
No, this is the first time she hasn't been down here in everybody else's business. I think she's locked herself in the room. Got the impression she's up there crying.
Lord sakes, this has got to stop. Rebecca, get down here.
Good morning, everybody. Only 5 more hours to live.
Where are you off to so early, George Gibbs?
Just stepping across the grass to see my girl.
Oh, not without your overshoes, you don't. It is raining torrents out there. You don't go out of this house unless you're prepared for it.
Oh, Ma, it's just a step.
You will catch your death of cold and cough throughout the service.
Now, George, listen to what your mother tells you.
From tomorrow on, you can kill yourself in all weathers for all I care, but while you're under my house, you will obey my rules. Thank you very much. You know, maybe Miss Webb isn't used to company so early. Well, why don't you take a cup of coffee?
I'll be back in a minute. Good morning, Mother Webb.
George, you frightened me. Now, I can let you in a minute out of the wet, but you know I can't ask you all to wait inside.
Well, why not?
George, you know the rules as well as I do. The groom cannot see the bride on the wedding day. Not till he sees her in church.
That's just some awful superstition. Good morning, Aunt Webb.
Oh, good morning, George.
Now, Aunt Webb, you don't believe in an awful superstition like that, do you?
Well, there's some common sense in some of those superstitions, George.
Millions have fallen to George. You don't want to be the first to fly the face of custom, do you?
How's Emily?
Well, she hasn't waked up yet. I haven't heard a sound out of her.
Emily's asleep?
Oh, well, no wonder. We were up till all hours sewing and packing. Well, tell you what I'll do. You sit down here with Aunt Webb and drink this cup of coffee. Now, I'll go upstairs and see that she doesn't come down here and surprise you. Oh, there's bacon too, but don't be long about it.
Well, how you doing, George?
I'm fine. Aunt Webb, what sense is there in believing in a superstition like that?
Well, you see, George, on her wedding morning, a girl's head is apt to be full of clothes and things. Don't you think that's probably it?
Yeah, I guess I never thought of it like that.
Girls have to be mighty nervous on her wedding day, George.
I wish a fella could get married without all the marching up and down.
Oh, George, every man who's ever lived has felt that way. But it isn't any use. Oh, we women, we're just going to have it all our way for a while. Man looks mighty small on his wedding day, George, with all those fine women standing shoulder to shoulder, making sure that that knot is tied in a very public way.
But you believe in it, don't you, Aunt Webb?
Oh, yes, of course, George. Please don't misunderstand me. Marriage is a wonderful thing, a wonderful thing. And don't you forget that, George.
No, ma'am. Aunt Webb, how old were you when you got married?
Well, I'd been away to college, so it was a while before I settled down. But Emily's mother, why, she was about the same age as Emily is now. Age really doesn't have much to do with it, George. Well, not when you consider other things.
What were you going to say, Aunt Webb?
Oh, I don't know. Was I going to say something? You know, I was thinking the other night about something my father said to my intended Tom when we were going to get married. Tom, he said, start off right away and let her know who's the boss. Give an order, even if it doesn't make any sense, just to see if she'll obey. And then he said, if there's anything about your wife that annoys you, like her conversation or anything, just get up and walk out of the house. That'll show her. And then he said, never let your wife know how much money you make. Never.
Aunt Webb, I don't think I could.
Oh, George. Oh, my Tom. He did the opposite of what my father advised, and we lived happily until the day he died. And let that be a lesson to you, George. Never ask for advice on personal matters. Are you going to raise chickens on your farm, George?
What?
Are you going to raise chickens on your farm?
Oh, Uncle Luke's never been much interested.
Who came into my office the other day on the Balelo system of raising chickens? I'd like you to read it. I'm thinking of starting off small in the backyard and putting an incubator in the center.
Oh, Catherine, are you talking about that old incubator again? I thought you two would be talking about things worthwhile.
Well, Myrtle, if you want to give the boys some good advice, I'll go upstairs and leave you alone.
George, Emily's got to come downstairs and eat her breakfast. Now, she sends you her love, but she's not one to lay eyes on you. Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Well, Myrtle, I guess you don't know about that older superstition.
What do you mean, Catherine?
Since the caveman, no bridegroom should see his in-laws on the day of his wedding or near it. Now, you just remember that. Thank you both. I'm sorry. I have to interrupt you again. We'd like to know how all this began. This wedding.
this plan to spend the rest of your life together. I'm awfully interested in such things. Well, you know how it is. You're 21, 22, you make some decisions, and then, whoosh, you're 70. And you've been a lawyer for 50 years. And that white-haired lady that's sitting at your side has eaten more than 50,000 meals with you. How do such things begin? George and Emily are going to show you exactly their conversation of how this began, how that, as the saying goes, they were meant for each other. But first, I would like you to remember for me what it was like when you were very young, particularly when you were in love, and you felt like sleepwalking, and you just couldn't see the street beneath your feet, and you didn't hear anything that anyone said. You were just a little bit crazy. Would you remember that, please? Now, they'll be coming out of high school at about 3 o'clock. George has just been elected president of his junior class, and it's June. So that means he'll be president of his senior class, too. And Emily, why, she's just been elected secretary and treasurer. And I don't have to tell you how important that is.
Oh, Louise, I can't. I have to go home. Ernestine, will you come over later and do some Latin? That Cicero is the worst thing. Tell your mother you have to. Goodbye, Helen. Goodbye, Fred.
Emily, can I carry the books for you?
Oh, why, thank you. It isn't far.
Excuse me, Emily. Say, Bob, if I'm late, start practice anyway, and throw her some long high ones.
Goodbye, Lizzie.
Goodbye, Lizzie. I'm awfully glad you're elected too, Emily.
Why, thank you.
Emily, why are you mad at me?
I'm not mad at you.
You've been treating me awful funny lately.
Well, George, since you asked me, I might as well come right out and say it. Oh, goodbye, Miss Corcoran.
Goodbye, Miss Corcoran. What is it?
Well, the whole change has come over you in the last year. Sorry if that hurt your feelings, George, but I have to tell the truth and shame the devil.
A change? What do you mean?
Well, up to a year ago, I used to like you a lot. I used to watch as you did everything, because we had been friends for so long, and then you started spending all your time at baseball, and never stopped to talk to anyone anymore. Not even your own family, George, and that's a fact. And then you started getting all conceited and stuck up, and all the girls say so. I mean, I might not say it to your face, but that's what they say behind your back, and I kind of have to agree with them a little. And I'm sorry if that hurt your feelings, George, but I'm also not sorry that I said it.
I'm glad you said it, Emily. I guess I never knew such a thing was happening to me. I guess it's hard for a fellow not to find any fault creep into his character.
I always figured a man should be perfect, and George, I think he ought to be.
I don't think it's possible to be perfect anyway.
Well, my father was, and as far as I can tell, your father is, so there's no reason on earth why you shouldn't be too.
I think it's the other way around, that guys aren't naturally good, but girls are.
How do you know that I am not perfect? It's harder for us women to be as perfect as the men. We're more nervous. And oh, George, I'm so sorry I said all those things about you. I have no idea why on earth I said them.
Emily,
Now I see it's not even the truth at all, and I shouldn't have said them anyway.
Emily, would you like an ice cream soda or something before you go home?
Oh, I would. Thank you, George.
Hey, Stu, how are you? Good afternoon, Mrs. Slocum.
Well, hello, George. Hello, Emily. What do you have? Why, Emily Webb, what have you been crying about?
She just got into an awful scare, Mr. Morgan. She almost got ran over by that hardware store wagon. Everybody says that Tom Huckins drives like a crazy
Well,
man.
you just sit down and you just have yourself a glass of water. You look all shook up. Well, it's getting so you can't even cross Main Street these days. What do you have?
I'll have a strawberry frosting. Thank you, Mr. Morgan.
Now, Emily. Have an ice cream soda with me. 2 strawberry ice cream sodas, Mr. Morgan.
2 strawberry ice cream sodas coming up. You know, there are over 125 horses in Grover's Corners right now. I'm telling you. And the state inspector was in here the other day and was talking about these here automobiles. Well, I think a person should just stay at home. Well, I can remember when a dog could sleep all day in the middle of Main Street and nothing would come along to disturb him. Here you go. 2 ice cream sodas. Enjoy it. Yes, Mrs. Alice, what can I do for you?
They're so expensive.
Now, don't think like that, Emily. We're celebrating our election. You know what else I'm celebrating?
Well,
Well, I'm celebrating because I have a friend who tells me everything that ought to be told to me.
George, please don't think of me like that. I have no idea why I said those things. I mean,
You
George.
stick to it, Emily. I'm glad you spoke to me like you did. But you'll see, I'm going to change. I'm going to change so quick, you can bet I'm going to change. And Emily, can I ask a favor?
Why, yes, George.
If I go to agricultural school next year, Emily, would you ride me every once in a while?
I most certainly will, George. I most certainly will. Sure seems like you get out of touch with things after 3 years. And Grover's Corners isn't too cool if you think of all New Hampshire, but I think it's a nice town.
Now. A day wouldn't go by where I wouldn't want to know everything that's happening here. I know that's true, Emily.
Well, I'll try to make my letters interesting, George.
You know, every time I meet a new farmer, I always ask him if it's important to go to agricultural school to even be a good farmer. Most of them say it's just a waste of time. I mean, you can get all those things in the pamphlets the government sends out. Uncle Luke's getting old. I'd be able to work on this farm tomorrow if I could.
Why, George?
Like you say, being gone all that time, going to different towns, meeting new people, gosh, if a thing like that could ever happen, I don't know if I want to go away. I guess new people aren't as good as the old ones, and I bet they almost never are. You're as good as a friend as I've got, Emily. I don't need to go to other towns and meet other people.
Like, George, maybe it's important for you to learn about those things. Cattle raising, soils. Of course, I don't know.
I'm going to make up my mind right now. I won't go to agricultural school next year. I'll tell Paul about it tonight.
Okay, George, I don't understand why you have to make a decision right now. It's a whole year away.
I'm glad you spoke to me about that, Emily. That fault in my character. What you said was right. But there was one wrong thing in it. Why? You say I've been paying attention to people all year. You, for instance, well, you say you would watch me when I did everything, but I was doing the same about you all the time. Why, sure, I always thought of you as one of the chief people I thought about. I made sure where you were sitting in the bleachers and who you were with. And for 3 days now, I've been trying to walk home with you, but something's always got in the way. Yesterday, I was standing over there waiting for you, and I saw you walk home with Miss Corcoran.
George, life's awful funny, isn't it? I mean, how was I supposed to
I'm
know
going to
that?
tell you I'm not going to agricultural school next year. I feel that once you find someone that you're fond of, and, I mean, that person's fond of you too, enough to be interested in your character, well, I think that's as important as agricultural school is, and even more so, that's what I think.
I think it's awfully important too, George. Yes, George?
Emily, if I do improve, if I do make a big change, would you be? Could you be?
I am now. I always have been.
I guess this has been an important conversation we've been having.
Yes, it has been, George.
Wait 1 minute, I'll walk you home. Mr. Morgan, I'm going to have to go home and get you the money to pay for this.
What's that? By George Gibbs, you need to tell me
But I
that.
had reasons, Mr. Morgan. Here, take my watch till I come back with the money.
You just keep your watch. I'll trust you.
I'll be back in 5 minutes.
I'll trust you for 10 years, but I won't trust you a day after. You get all over your shock, Emily.
Oh, yes, Mr. Morgan.
You're so cute. Bye. Well, now it's time to get on with the wedding. Can I have the stage hands up here now, please? Now. Come on. I have to wait till the second. Now, there are an awful lot of things that go into a wedding. There are an awful lot of thoughts that go into a wedding. Of course, not everything can go into one wedding, naturally, especially a wedding that's here in Grover's Corners, where they're awfully plain and short. In this wedding, I played the minister. So I guess that gives me a little more to talk about. Now, up till now, the play has gotten pretty serious. You see, the church believes that marriage is a sacrament. Well, I don't quite know what that means, but I can guess. It's like what Mrs. Gibbs said a few moments ago. Everyone lives 2 by 2. This is a good wedding, but even at a good wedding, there's so much confusion in people's minds that I thought that ought to be in our play too. The real hero of this scene isn't even on the stage, and we all know who that is. It's like one of them European fellas said. Every child born into the world is nature's attempt at making a perfect human being. Well, we all know that nature's been pushing and contriving for some time now. Well, we know that nature is interested in quantity, but I like to think that she's interested in quality too. That's why I joined the ministry. And don't forget all those witnesses, millions of them. Why, they wanted to live life 2 by 2 as well. Millions of them. Well, that's all my sermon. Twa'n't very long anyway.
Our
Oh, hi. It's so good to see you. Oh. Well, hi there. It's going to be a beautiful wedding, I'm
I don't know why on earth I should be crying. I suppose there's nothing to cry about. He came over to me at breakfast this morning. There was Emily sitting at my breakfast table as she's done for the past 17 years, and now she's off to eat at someone else's house. Oh, I suppose that's it. And Emily, she suddenly said, "I can't eat another mouthful, Mama." And she put her head down on the table and she cried. Oh, I've got to say, there's something downright cruel about sending our girls off into marriage this way. I do hope some of her girlfriends have told her a thing or two about it. It's cruel, I know, but I couldn't bring myself to say anything. I went into it blind as a bat myself. The whole world's wrong. That's what's the matter. Here they come.
me so.
But you wanted this.
Listen, Ma.
Oh, no, George, you are a man now.
Listen, Ma, for the last time I asked you, I just want to be a fella.
Hush, anybody should hear you. Why, George, I'm ashamed of you.
How's Emily?
George, you gave me such a girl.
Oh, Ma, cheer up.
Oh,
I'm getting married.
give me a minute to catch my breath.
Oh, now, Ma, you save Thursdays. Every Thursday, Emily and I will be over for dinner. You can back out on it. Now, Ma, why are you crying? We gotta get ready for this.
I have never felt so alone in my entire life. George over there looking so... Oh, I hate him, I wish I were dead, Auntie. Oh.
Emily, don't be upset, please.
Oh, Auntie, I don't want to get married. Remember what you used to say to me? You always used to say that I was your little girl. Let's go away. I can keep house, I'll work for you.
You mustn't say things like that. You're just nervous. George, come here a minute. George is a wonderful man. You are marrying the most wonderful fella in the world.
George, I'm giving away my daughter to you. Can you take care of her?
I will try. I'll do my best, and yes, I love you and I need you.
Love me, then help me. All I've ever wanted is for somebody to love me.
I will try.
And I mean forever, George. Do you hear me? Forever and ever.
Do George take Emily to be your lawful
Perfectly lovely wedding. Loveliest wedding I've ever seen. Oh, I do love a good wedding, don't you? Doesn't she make a lovely bride?
I do. And do you, Emily, take George to be
I don't know
your
when I've
lawful
been to
wedded
such a
husband?
nice wedding, but I always cry. I don't know why it is, but I always cry. I just like to see young people happy, don't you? Oh, I think it's lovely.
The ring. I have married over 200 couples. Do I believe in it? I don't know. M marries N, millions of them. The go-kart, the Sunday afternoon drives in the Ford, the first rheumatism, the grandchildren, the second rheumatism, the deathbed, the reading of the will. Well, every once in a while it has to become interesting. And now let's have Mendelssohn's Wedding March. May I present George and Emily Gibbs?
I don't know when I've been to such a nice wedding. Aren't they a lovely couple? I'm sure they'll be happy. I always say, happiness, that's the great thing. The important thing is to be happy. No, I just think it. Oh, I just can't. Every time I always cry at weddings. Thank you, so we'll see you Sunday at church. I'm looking forward to it. I've got to go rest of it. It's such a nice wedding.
I got my tan back.
Thank God that's over. We'll have a brief intermission, folks. I, of all people, know how uncomfortable these chairs are. I'll see you in a few.